Hello, Farzad. How are you doing?
Hello, Adrian. I'm great. Yourself?
Yeah, doing great. Good to see you. And
Likewise.
welcome, everyone. Thanks for giving us some of your time today. We appreciate that. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. But quick confession up front. Um, Personally, I'm with an IT company, but we're not going to be talking about IT at all. This is not going to be a tech talk. In fact, Farzad and I made a promise we're not going to mention AI once, other than the once I just did throughout this whole discussion. However, the advancement of technology does loom large over this conversation. Because here's the thing: you can buy the best technology platform or service on the market, but if the process behind it is held together by sticky notes on monitors or one person's memory, then that shiny new tool or service is just going to accelerate the chaos. So today, instead of talking about what to buy, you don't need to buy anything from this discussion. We're going to take a step back and focus on something that's much more foundational and impactful, and that is how work flows through the firm, how to find points of friction, and what you can do to resolve it before layering technology on top to accelerate. So I'm looking forward to talking with you today about this, Farzad, and I know you have a ton of experience. We've chatted a little bit before, um, and I know we've met a bunch of times at Taloma, and so I'm really looking forward to hearing your insight on this. Perhaps you could start with an introduction about yourself for those who don't know you.
Definitely. Thanks again, Adrian, and for everybody tuning in, either live or watching the rebroadcast broadcast or the podcast video later on. As Adrian said, I think I'll just kind of touch on one of your key item comments and then introduce myself a bit. Is it technology is great. We both have technical backgrounds, and I think a lot of
Mm,
folks watching this also potentially or likely have technical backgrounds. But it's a lot more important to get the foundational information, foundational structure right before you can build the technology on top of it. So that's our aim for this conversation today is just sort of sharing what are the best practices and how we can get those initial conversations, initial steps right, so that your technology implementations become successful and effective. So,
yeah.
a little bit about myself. So, I do have a technical background as well. I studied computer science at Waterloo a long time ago, but then moved into management roles and operation roles after a few years of coding. In the last about 15 years, I have been in the legal industry, uh, all of it focusing on operations and process improvements and implementations of technology solutions to help legal operations. I've been fortunate and lucky that I've been able to work at different firms with different sizes, large firms of multiple hundreds or close to thousands of lawyers across multiple offices, down to smaller firms of less than 20 lawyers. So it's uh, one of the unique things about legal is that the partnership model and the fact that the partnership model really changes things. So a lot of our conversation today, this conversation is really geared towards, in my opinion, and I think for our audience, towards successful processes and operations in legal industry. So I'll try to keep that in mind and touch on those elements as we go forward.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my name is Adrian, for anyone that doesn't know me. I work at an IT firm that specializes in delivering IT service to law firms. Personally, I started as a technician. I spent many all-nighters, rebuilding a PC law server in someone's office, and been through that whole phase. But as our team has grown, we have a great team that looks after the technology. So it's allowed me more to focus on not the technology part, but how do we help clients to grow and beyond technology outside of what we do. I no longer really bill for my time, but it lets me to have conversations like this and with other firms on what can we do to actually help. So there's two reasons I'm looking forward to this conversation. One is because I have spent years obsessing over our own operations here at our company. And in many ways, we're like a firm. We bill for our time, or we have all of our time tracked. We look for specific KPIs. We have to run a really tight ship. So operations is something that's near and dear to my heart for our company. But secondly, like I said, we work with technology, but our mission really and our value is to help clients grow. So more is needed than just the tech. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. Just before we start, just a few quick housekeeping things. We're planning to keep our conversation down to 30 minutes. And we'll leave a little space at the end for questions. So post questions. There's a couple of feeds. There's one on Teams, one on LinkedIn. So feel free to post questions there. If we get any, we'll put it up on the screen at the end. If not, that's fine too. You can reach out to us personally. So yeah, so let's get going, Farzad, into the meat of it.
Okay, sounds good. Absolutely.
When you why do you think so many or I guess I should say, when you start at a firm,
Mhm.
what is the first thing that you notice needs addressing?
Good question. So I think when you start in a new firm, you know, whether it is an operation manager, director of operations, whatever the role and titles might be, the very first thing you have to do is a discovery, right? You need to understand what is working, what is not working in that firm, in the perspective of the various stakeholders. So, what my recommendation and what my practice is when I start at a new firm is I connect with all the stakeholders. I start from the partners, right? Speak with all the partners, not only the ones that are on the
Mm.
leadership team, but connect with every single partner. They are your most important stakeholders. They are the ones that can really, I'll say, make or break any initiative, anything you want to do to improve things. So you really need to understand them. You need to build a relationship with them and hear their concerns and their thoughts. But don't stop at partners because they have a very unique set of perspectives and different set of needs from the associates, from the clerks, from the legal assistants, even the people working on the back office, even the mailroom, in folks, they all have a huge stake in the overall operations and how things work, hopefully seamlessly or with some sort of friction, or but people are making it work. So what is the key is to talk to everybody, take the information that they share with you, synthesize and understand that information, and then build and sort of build a plan and a thought process of what are the things that you can do from there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do you ever find that that how do you structure these conversations to overcome people maybe retaining information or maybe being feeling like they're being put on the spot or you know um, maybe feeling like why are you asking me about my job? Why are you asking me about
Yeah,
what I do?
yeah. So what you have to do is you have to sort of build a strategy very specific to each of the various stakeholders, right?
Hmm.
When you are talking to a partner, they are the owners of the business. They have a different set of priorities and objectives. They have a different set of pain points. I think most of us have heard when we, talk to a partner that the very first thing they tell you is like, "Oh, nothing works around here. Everything is broken." Or
Right.
some of them tell you, "Oh, you know what? Things are working. They are not the greatest. There are some problems, but don't change anything because I've got a few more years till my retirement. So keep things as it is until I retire, and then you can do whatever you want with the rest of the folks, right?" So you got to have one strategy for those people and sort of really approach them from a business perspective, a business conversation that you are an owner of a business. It is in your best practice, in your best interest, and in your other partner's best interest, and in the long-term benefit of the firm for you to be having these discussions, to be sort of allowing things to evolve and allowing things to grow and mature. And by things, I mean processes or tools that are being used in the firm. So that's one sort of vertical. Then we are talking to others, the associates or the clerks. You've got different things to deal with them. For them, the priorities are their career path. How do they become successful? What is it going to take for me to move into a partnership position? Or the
Hmm.
clerk wants to move into a senior clerk role or do something different. So you got to understand what is each stakeholder's interest and priorities and really come at things in a way that shows how your these conversations are actually help them enable and reach their priorities and their goals. And on your point of what do you do so that you don't sort of alarm people that, oh my God, why is Farzad now asking me about all these questions? Does this mean that I'm losing my job or things of that nature? Be very open and honest with people. Tell them that right off the bat that this is not a conversation to replace them or eliminate their role, right? It is a conversation to better understand how things work around the firm, how things can be improved, and tell them right from the beginning that yes, we tell them that if that's the plan, like don't make things up. But if the plan is, and most likely it is the plan, is you want to improve things, you want to make things simpler for them so that they can do more rewarding things. If somebody is taking all their day doing a very repetitive task, it is not a very rewarding thing for them to be doing all day. So what you can tell them is, we're going to look at that repetitive task, see how can we do it in a more efficient way so that you have bit of time in your day to do something else that you are interested in, that help out in a different way with the overall goals of the firm. And people will appreciate that.
Yeah. And imagine too, it puts a lot of stress on someone if they're a single point of failure. Even firms that are 30, 40, 50 people, they have that one person, right? Can't be away when they're doing billing or whatever the case is. So
Yeah,
imagine that's
yeah,
appealing too.
yeah, exactly. You come across that a lot of times in smaller firms. A lot of time you have an individual who is now, an office manager perhaps, who has
Hmm.
been sort of trusted with so much information, and they have so much retained knowledge and insight on how the firm operates, right? So it becomes almost to the point that the firm will sort of I will all will be impacted. Let's put it that way. I don't want to say will stop working, because
Yeah.
I hope that's never the case. But you know what? Sometimes there might be the case that things will fall apart because there is so
Yeah.
much riding on one individual, right? And that
Yeah.
person is doing a great job. They have been a valuable member of the firm, and they have, contributed in every way possible. We are all sort of seeing those heroes that always roll up their sleeves and everybody loves them. They help out and they do whatever it takes. But in the long run, it is not to the benefit of the firm, because to your point, it's a single point of failure, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a single point of failure. If that person ever is not there, what happens? Nobody knows how things happen. They all say, I just walk up, or I just, ask X and they do it. I don't know how they do it. So what am I going to do today if they're not there? And also, it's sort of, I think we're all also getting to a stage in a lot of firms that I go to. It's people's career progressions. People are near retirement, right? And they have not planned or done anything to prepare themselves for that retirement, right? How do you
Hmm.
transition things to somebody else, and how do you step back and let the firm operate without you being there?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it benefits everyone, benefits the firm and benefits the employees. But I appreciate your approach. It has to be empathetic. It can't be, you can't call them into your office and say, okay, what do you do here? You know, because you'll get a lot of resistance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially again on those sort of operational team members. Like, you've got to build a relationship with them. Also, you can't go
Hmm.
in day one and sort of say, okay, you know what? Trust me. You
Yeah.
don't know me. You don't know anything about me, but I've just come here. Just have blind trust in me and tell me everything you do, and off we go.
Right.
No, you got to
Right.
build that relationship with them. Start sort of high level and understanding what they do, in understanding them. What are the interests? What are the challenges, right? Before going into a deep dive of the process, of the way they work, and how they produce a widget, right? Get to know the individual, right? We are all humans. When you layer out remove
Hmm.
all those external layers, we are all humans in our core. We have needs, we have desires. So it's important to understand those and connect whatever the conversation is to those needs and desires of the individuals.
Yeah. Yeah. Very
Yeah.
insightful. So at a busy firm, there's a lot of processes that are going on, and sometimes
Mhm.
repeat processes depending on the lawyer involved or the client involved. There's unique processes, which is always the killer, right? When you're trying to map
Yeah.
anything out. So where do you start? Like when you're now that you've broken down those barriers in a conversation with staff member, you have
Mhm.
alignment from the partners. How do you start begin? How do you begin to start mapping out all of these processes?
Yeah. So one of the things that I want to really emphasize on, and you touched on it too, is that alignment with partners. So
Mm,
that's very, very important before you actually start doing any of the mapping of processes or changing of the processes, right?
mhm,
So what I do, what I recommend is from all those conversations is I build a list of, opportunities. These are things that we have or I have identified from all the conversations that we can analyze, we can do a deep dive on and do a, improve on it in one way or another. And often in my experience, those lists are 100 plus items just from those initial conversations, right? There's a lot of things that, we like to do, especially when you talk to all the different stakeholders. Everybody has their own priorities and their own uh, preferences. So what you got to do is you take your list and you prioritize it yourself based on your own expertise, based on what you have heard. Then you work with your leadership team. Have a managing partner or a group of partners who are really in charge of the business. With them, get their buy-in after prioritization and select a handful. This is not going to be more than three or five items that you select right off the bat, right? Select those items which are the most important for everybody to work on. Then once you have those selected, you have the management, the leadership team on board. Then you do a deep dive on each of them, right? And you go through a process of really understanding the current workflows, the current processes. What is, and in this one, you got to go into the detail. It's not just simply now a high level conversation. You got to go into detail, understand the various sort of interactions, the various touch points, who are all the people doing it, and to your point, also understand the different way that this is happening. Often in law firms, again, because of that partnership model, you get scenarios where a partner says to their team of associates and assistants, I want it done this way, right? Somebody else does it this in a different way. So there is variations and twists. Understand all of those and document it. It's very, very important to document it. There is lots of tools out there, but Visio is always a good old one. There is a lot of newer tools that are out there that can help you do
hmm,
process mapping diagrams. But use Visio, draw out the process, put the decision points, and document all the sort of aspects of the current process as it is. And then within that process, you will identify and you will hear of the bottlenecks. You will hear of the variations and you will discover the variations that are within the firm that are impeding the process, because the variation, it might be good for one partner, but most likely it creates, or most times it creates issues downstream or upstream for somebody else, right? Because things are not consistent. So do those as a starting process and sort of document what's happening, identify the bottlenecks, identify the opportunities of how things can be improved, and then build with the stakeholders, with the people who are doing the work, with your technology people, with the business matter experts, subject matter experts, build your improvement plan, right? How are we going to improve this, right? It's not always necessarily a technology or tool, as you said. There is a lot more that can be done even within an existing tool set that will make things, more efficient. But a lot of time, also introduction of a new tool will help out that process. So this is sort of the improvement process, the improvement planning, and select what is it that you want to change and how is it that you want to change things. Is it just a process change? Is it a tool set change? And then get your stakeholders, your sort of leadership team, the partners, if there are any partners that have a louder voice in respect to the area that you are changing. Some partners are more interested in the financial, some are more interested in the marketing, some are more interested in, in the development of the junior lawyers and things like so. Identify those people,
hmm.
engage them in the conversation, make sure they're aware of what's happening and they are on board with everything that's being proposed. then you build and you implement your solution, and then after that you work on sort of the adoption and actually using and getting the benefits. So
Yeah,
sort of the other,
we have
if
a
I could, yeah,
little graphic for that. We can put
yeah,
it just a touch bigger there. But
definitely,
I think, with my experience of mapping out processes and improving them, you can't start with every process at once, like you said.
yep,
You have to pick one. You have to start this wheel on one of them, because they're living things, like there will always be exceptions that come in. There will be training that needs to be done. You might add automation, you might add some types of technology to it. Like, there's always these adjustments. Just the industry in general changes sometimes.
yep,
But if you have it mapped out, and you have this iterative process with your culture, you know, geared towards constant improvement and learning, then then you can move on to the next one.
yeah.
Right?
Or even
Little
within one,
wins.
Adrian. Like, you know what,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. Like, we both talked about sort of that prioritization and selecting processes. But sometimes even within one process, there is multiple iteration needed within things, because some things are
Okay.
big beast. Billing at every law firm, right? That's a huge, huge aspect or component of any firm's, uh, productivity and uh, business value, right? How do you bill? When do you bill? And who does the billing? How do we do the reviews of the bills before they go out to client? How do we ensure that the right bill goes out to the right client? And we deal with sort of the confidentiality aspect of the client's requirements and things of that nature, right? So
Yeah.
if you try to tackle all of that in one go and improve on every single aspect of it in one go, it's going to be very difficult, and your
Yeah.
chances of success will be significantly diminished. Versus break it down into a smaller, manageable pieces that you can focus on and say, okay, now in this iteration, we are going to simply look at our documentation and our process for capturing information for distribution of bills to the clients, right? How do we mm, how do we respect and adhere to the client requirements? That's a very sensitive area, and legal
Hmm.
work is all around trust. It's all around the relationship, right? So it's very important to get that 100%, near 100% or 100% right all the time. So that information as to how that information is captured, how that information is shared amongst the members of the team is, you know, extremely important. So just focus on that aspect of it. That way, you have something that is manageable with a short time frame, with a quick win that you can prove to the team and to the stakeholders, to the partners that, hey, look, we've made an improvement here, and now we can build on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic.
Mhm.
And once you get traction, then, like you said, you can build on it by addressing other processes as well.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is just that sort of that, especially we started this conversation about, what do you do when you are new in a firm, right? So what
Yeah.
you have to do is you have to actually prove yourself and show that you are sort of what you are proposing and the changes that you are making or, want to make life easier, add value for the firm, right? So
Right.
it is important to show some wins early to show that what the process is going to look like, and to get that confidence of your stakeholders in what you want to do. Then from there you can move on to bigger things and more substantive changes.
Right. Very good.
Yeah.
So we just have about just a short time left, just a minute or two. But if for anyone listening to this, I think 70% of the people on our webinar right now, at least live, are office managers. What would be one first step? What's the first thread for them to pull as they start ironing out or keep working to iron out processes in the firm?
So yeah, I think the very first thing is, if you haven't already got that prioritized list of what are the things that you need to be working on, work on that. Build a list, build your laundry list of what needs to be done, right? And then from there, build your priorities for the next 6 months, for the next year, and then you can iterate on that. If you have that already and you have a good list of things that need to be done, then start doing deep dive on what is the selected few between your from your perspective and from your leadership perspective, and focus on those items and go on. And I think
Yeah.
one other thing that I wanted to quickly touch on before we go to question is, I kind of went through it quickly in when I was talking about all the different steps. We talked about the early planning phases and the implementation phase. But once you're implementing, or as you're implementing things, it's very important also to get a sense of who are the champions that you can have for this change, right? Every change needs
Hmm.
to have a good change management plan, right? Because if you don't have anybody who is bought into the change before it actually gets implemented, you're you are going to face a lot of resistance, right? So
Right.
make sure as you are planning the process, make sure as you are discussing the changes, make sure as you are doing the build, you identify your champions who are in the various user groups, or the various groups that are being impacted by your change, right? Make sure if you have a partner who is very vocal, and lawyers are not shy, they will always say what's on their minds, right? Make sure you connect with them in advance and get them to sort of raise any concerns they have, get them to become your champion, and have them actually speaking of the praises of the value of the change that's being proposed, that's being
Hmm.
rolled out, without or instead of them becoming the naysayers and sort of making life more difficult for everybody, right?
It's a very
So
political job.
it absolutely is. I think any change you need to sort of think about that, but in the law firms, a lot more. Like those aspects,
Yeah.
those change management aspects become significantly more, because again, the partners, it's their business. They can say, you know what? Okay, you've implemented this new process, but I don't care. I'm going to do it my own way still,
My
right?
way. Yeah.
And it that will then really diminish the value of what you have done, because once one person has started doing it the other way, a, you are not going to get the benefits that you need from it, and b, it opens the door for others to sort of bring in their own changes and variations. The other
Right.
thing that I wanted to quickly touch on is, after you implement, don't abandon your users. Continue the conversation, continue the dialogue, right? Really go in, no matter how much pre planning we do, there is going to be things that we are going to miss, right? So we talked about the iteration, like the iteration that you show, it pops up at various levels, right? Iteration within the overall processes,
Yeah.
iteration of a subset of the process. But even if you pick, that example that I used earlier, your process for documenting client information and client requests, right? You're not going to get it out in one shot. It's absolutely okay. So go back and iterate on that. Once you implement it, once you have your user using that new process for a week or two, go and talk to them. What is working in this new way? What is not working in this new way? What are you missing from the old one? And it takes people are resistant to change. So it takes people a little bit of time, a little bit of practice. And so instead of them simply allowing that resistance to take over as it sets in and say, oh, this new change is useless, and be disgruntled about it. If you talk with the users, if you hear them and you hear their concerns, and you show them the right way of doing it, right? Remind them of the way that this new tool is helping out, that frustration will evaporate, and they will become your new champions, and they will become on board and increase the success of your changes and your improvements.
Fantastic suggestion. It looks like we don't have any uh, questions coming in for Azad, so maybe we can just close with taking a look at this graphic just to sum up what we've been discussing up until now. where to start and where it leads.
Yeah, I think this is a good graphic. It sort of really summarizes things that we've been talking about, right? Fewer steps. First one is define your workflow flow, right? So I'm assuming again there is a step zero in here that you have selected your priority and you know what is it that you're working on. So
Yeah.
first step is define your workflow. Understand, how do things start? Who are the different people that are involved? Who are the decision makers? What is needed to make a decision? How does this process become successful, right? So define that, document that, get into the details of it, get into the weeds. And by that, I don't mean go in and try to do it 100%, right? We talked about it already. You are going to miss something, that's fine. Get it to that 80%, 90%
Hmm.
confidence level, and you are good to go to the next step. So the next step really then when you are building that process, when you are documenting it, you identify the bottlenecks, and those bottlenecks are either redundancies in the process. I've seen many places where everybody who touches the widget in on the process checks the same thing. That's redundancy. That's adding extra work for people. You should build things and be confident that the person in a step one or a step N who is checking it is doing their job properly and that check is valid. You don't need to recheck and check the checker and check the checker, right? So those are sort of redundancies that add delay and bottlenecks. Then talk about your improvement plan. Figure out how is it that you're going to improve things, get buy-in from your stakeholders through this step. This is very important to make sure that your key stakeholders, your leadership team is on board to what you are suggesting, how you are looking at changing things, what alternatives you're suggesting, making sure you're starting to build and get those champions on board with the changes right from this step, right? And then from there is the implementation, which is the this is sort of the IT part. Usually, if there's an IT component involved, like the tool selection, tool implementation, training falls a little bit into this one, and then the next one is adapt and evaluate, right? What we talked about. So the tool has been implemented. How do we make sure that we are getting the best value out of it, talking to the users, making sure that we get their feedback, and if need be, loop back to step one to improve things and sort of go through this iterative cycle. But it's
Yeah.
very important to kind of do each of these steps and not do them in a silo, do them in collaboration with all your stakeholders and the people that are impacted.
Yeah. Well, Farzad, I feel like I feel like we just cracked the dam of your knowledge here, and just spilling out. So
Yes,
we're gonna have to do this again, probably on a few topics. There's a few things that you mentioned I'd love to double click on and drill into, but time escapes us. But I think we have to do this again sometime. Yeah.
I would love that. Definitely, as you can see, I can go off the rail on lots of these things. There's a lot to talk about. I'll be happy to join you again for another conversation. Love that. And also, if anybody is interested to connect with me directly on anything, feel free to reach out as well. Also, I'm sure everybody has got sort of a whole list of their favorite podcasts or places they go for kind of hearing others' thoughts and perspective. One of my favorites is the Legal Ops podcast. It's available
Okay.
on sort of the main platforms. So subscribe to it, and it talks a lot about sort of process improvements and how we can make legal operations more effective for everyone. So if you enjoy listening to podcasts and hearing what others have to say, and you are not already tuned into legal ops, give it a shot.
Fantastic suggestion. I love it. So yeah, as thanks everyone for joining us. And we're going to wrap it up now. But if you want to connect with Farzad or I, here's our LinkedIn QR codes. I think I think we're also going to both be at Taloma. So and I know that a lot of Taloma members are here at the on this webinar. So maybe we'll meet up in person there. I'm giving a workshop kind of similar to this, but more about how we build a culture of, like Farzad mentioned, champions, so that we can have adoption kind of sweep through the firm and not just halt at the naysayers. So I'm working on that. It would be great to see everyone there, and please feel free to reach out anytime, LinkedIn, in person, and yeah, any way possible. So
Yeah,
thanks
absolutely.
again, Farzad.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining, and hope to see you soon.
All right, take care.
Take care.